I believe that one of the fundamental challenges that we are facing today, whether it's in the schools or colleges or workplace, is our unwillingness to analyze our decision making mechanism and recognizing that decisions always have consequences.
Hello, and welcome to the Decision Education Podcast, where I talk to experts and share tips on all things related to decision making. I'm your host, Dr. Joe Sweeney, broadcasting from the Alliance for Decision Education, the educational nonprofit committed to the belief that better decisions lead to better lives and a better society. Imagine what a difference it would make in your life and the lives of those you love if we were all even a little better at making decisions. This podcast is for you, the adults, who are already out in the world making thousands of decisions every day and who want to get better at it. I hope you find it helpful. I'm excited to welcome our guest today, Garry Kasparov. Garry is a Russian pro-democracy leader, a global human rights activist, a business speaker and author, and arguably the greatest chess player who has ever lived. In 1985, he became the youngest ever undisputed world chess champion at the age of 22. Since then, he's battled IBM supercomputers, developed a keen interest in artificial intelligence, and become highly active in the global pro-democracy movement. In 2012, Kasparov was named chairman of the New York-based Human Rights Foundation, and in 2017, he founded the Renew Democracy Initiative. Garry is also on the advisory council here at the Alliance for Decision Education. I'm just delighted to have you on the podcast, Garry. Thanks for doing this. And I wonder if you could just tell us a little bit about what you're doing and how you got to where you are.
Oh, that could be a very long story, Joe. So where do we start? So do we start at the winter evening in the city of Baku, the capital of Azerbaijan, in deep south of the USSR in 1968, 69. So that's this winter when I first looked at the chessboard, and I loved it at first sight of watching my parents trying to solve a chess puzzle from a local newspaper. So that's the beginning of the story. Should we talk about my rise to the chess Olympus that ended triumphantly in November 1985, November 9, 1985, when I became the youngest world champion, beating Anatoly Karpov, my great predecessor, the darling of the Soviet system? Should we talk about my engagement in nascent Soviet pro-democracy movement in the late 80s and fight for democracy in Russia, matches with IBM 96, 97. That's many believe that was the dawn of artificial intelligence. Though I disagree, we can definitely cover it, throughout our conversation. Or the moment I decided to stop playing chess, professional chess, and moved into what some people mistakenly call politics in Russia, though it was a fight for democracy and human rights against rising Putin's dictatorship, or my activity as the chairman of Human Rights Foundation and events that we run around the world, bringing together dissidents and human rights activists who are taking a very brave stand against dictators, terrorists, and thugs of all types. Or the moment when I had to leave Russia due to an imminent criminal case against me and moved to New York City in 2013. Okay, just you pick.
Yeah,
I don't know where to start.
so
And
I was very
and of
worried
course I
that this
wrote
was.
wrote books. It's this, yeah. Just to summarize, this very strange introduction into what I'm doing now. I'm still wearing many hats. I'm speaking at many occasions. Mostly it's about AI and about human machine collaboration. And of course, since I left my professional chess career, I've been very active talking about decision making. Probably we came to the point of our conversation today. I believe that one of the fundamental challenges that we are facing today, whether it's in the schools or colleges or workplace or even in retirement, is our unwillingness to analyze our decision making mechanism and recognizing that decisions always have consequences. That's why I immediately accepted the invitation to join the alliance, because I think analyzing the way we're making decisions could save us from a lot of trouble and also could help us to pave the road in a bright future.
So now all of us understand why we were so excited to have you on the podcast, right? It's just a rich set of experiences to talk about, especially as connected to decision making. I want to, and I'm fascinated by all of it, but I want to go back somewhat to the beginning, right? Tell us about Garry as a student and when he first experiences chess. What happens there? Give us the setting. Where are we in Azerbaijan at that point? Where's that happening? What's it like? What's school like?
Yeah, I have to say that it's my recollections are quite vague. I
Okay.
was 5.5, turning 6. As I said, probably it's winter time. Though winters in Baku were not harsh, so it's a very it was a deep south of the Soviet Union. So we didn't see much of a snow. So probably once every 5 years or even less. My parents they looked at the chess diagram in a local newspaper once a while, and they tried to solve a puzzle there, and I learned how to move the pieces without being told. Look, that's the story told by my mother. So that's the it's the yeah, because no one was there, with a Twitter feed, to report the moment that Garry Kasparov was first introduced to the game of chess. Yeah, I think I just I realized that there was something magical about these chess pieces and this board. There was some secrets, and I could feel that it's I didn't know these words, but it's like match made in heaven. So it was like a magnet that brought me in, and even now, 50 plus years later, I still have a great passion for the game. I have to tell you that I'm 57, turning 50, 58 in a few weeks' time, but my passion for chess doesn't age. Yeah,
That
and I enjoyed it very much, but just learning about the pieces, and this is just I had a couple of books that my father brought in that I read with him. I actually I think I learned how to read at age 5
okay.
early, and I just I read whatever I could, I could get my hands on, and by age 6 or 7 I could read already serious literature on chess, so I could just go through the pages, and I didn't need any extra help.
So are you playing at home at that point? Are you playing with friends at school? What's happening?
I remember playing with my uncle, the husband of my mother's sister, who was pretty good player. I mean, I would say, just he could play probably a third category player. So that he already knew some basics, and that was tough. So this is for at least a year or two. He was ahead of me, so he was
Hmm.
beating me until I was 8.
Okay.
Yeah, it's tragically my father died when I was 7, and it's just it changed our lives, because the that was a shock for my mother. She was just 33-year old, the young beautiful woman, and she lost her husband, who was 39. And I, yeah, for me it was also quite a shock. But now I understand that, before dying, my father made a very important decision, since everyone in his family was a musician. So it's or had musical education. He was the only one who was an engineer, but even he graduated a class of violin. So it's the in Weinstein family, my father's family, the music was a dominant factor. But he said just few months before dying, because he was diagnosed with cancer, the final stage of leukemia, in August, just around his birthday, mid-August 1970. And he struggled for 5 months and died in January. But in September, he told my mother that our son, he had different kind of brains, no music. He
Oh
try
wow.
chess, try
Yeah.
chess.
Okay.
So that's the again, that was an executive decision that proved to be the probably the best decision he ever made in his life. And I was sent to this chess section of Pioneer Palace in Baku. I was 7. I was taken there by my uncle, because my mother, she was, of course, just next to my father, next at his bed. And very quickly they discovered that I had great talent. So it was obvious, because I could pick up, the old ideas very quickly. I could just, you know, and I was so hungry for chess. And then my mother also, just, when she recovered from this tragedy, so she also realized that, it's the right thing is not to push too far, too early. So she just gave me time to actually to grow, to be more matured, and not to be overwhelmed by the game of chess. So she was always trying to not to slow down my progress, but to slow down, this is the my rise, just because facing strong competition at age 8, 9, or 10, that's tough. At age 10, that was another turning point, that after taking part in the first all union competition, I was a part of the Azeri squad in Vilnius in summer 1973. It's the first all Soviet junior or youth games.
Hmm.
I'm not sure what's the right translation. I was picked up as a talented kid for Botvinnik School. That's Mikhail Botvinnik, the first Soviet world champion, called Patriarch of Soviet Chess. And that was the beginning of long relations, even friendship. Though I was 52 years younger than Mikhail Moisevich, but he immediately saw something in me that's even just saw beyond others, recognizing that's a talent that he wanted to nurture.
And what is it they're seeing? Are they seeing just the result that you're winning, or are they seeing something you're doing, decisions you're making on the board that are different than
No,
others?
that's an excellent question, and that's the answer is of course the latter. It's not about the results. But when we sat in front of Botvinnik and showed our games, two of us, they were more mature, serious, knew more about opening theory, and I was told by our grandmaster who worked with Botvinnik at the time
Mm-hmm.
that when I showed the games, yeah, Botvinnik looked at him and he looked at Botvinnik and they said, "That's amazing. It's not just
What
winning,
do
but
you
it's
what does that mean? Showing a game?
no, no. I just showed my game.
You're
It's
just
the
making the
yeah.
same moves again that already
No, 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 no.
happened in
My,
the
my
game?
game, the game I played with other players. I just
Yeah.
showed my game. So a
Okay.
game I played, and when you show the game, you show the moves, and then
Yeah.
you explain. If I went there, so this is that's what happened. But I could do this, and he could do that. So, but it's also important how you explain what you did, and the speed, with this of the response to any questions, and it was almost lightning. So that's the and to my surprise and to surprise actually of the parents of the Ukrainian player, they picked up me
Yeah.
because they thought it was something outstanding, and this is one of the memories. I spent so much time talking about it because that had an effect on me for many years. And even when I left professional chess, I thought that I had to share not just my experience of making decisions, but my experience of analyzing why certain decisions were made,
Mm-hmm.
and that's what I learned from Botvinnik. So the relations with Botvinnik were absolutely instrumental because Botvinnik, was known for his very scientific approach. He believed chess is some form of science, and you must analyze your own games. This is the first question he always asks. Did you analyze your games? And many players, oh, yeah, we just glanced, and that was anathema to him. And I always entertained the analysis. I always enjoyed, looking at the games and trying to find new ideas. And Botvinnik convinced me. That's what I learned. Any game you play, whether you won or lose, you have to go through it. You have to be very, very consistent and very, I would say, it should be very bold, even relentless to analyze games and find your own mistakes,
Okay.
because this is a data that helps you to get better. So unless you keep getting better from game to game, you are not making any progress. So it's just every game, it's a data that you have to go through, you have to analyze, you have to process, and to make sure that next day, next game, you can utilize this information and surprise your opponents with some new ideas.
Could you give us an example of a decision and actually explain what it would mean to make a mistake in a decision that you made, and how you found that out later, or how you analyzed it?
So, or we can talk about a good strategic choice first.
Well, I'm happy to go good first. Go for it.
It's the story of my first match with Anatoly Karpov, 1984. So I was 21-year-old, young, arrogant, full of energy, crushed all the opposition on the way to the match. But I faced Anatoly Karpov, I faced world champion, who was 33. I mean, just it's great age. So it's
Yeah.
who was dominant force for 10 years since Bobby Fischer left without facing Karpov. And I made a psychological miscalculation, just not understanding that beating all the opposition prior to the match is not the same as winning the match against the world champion,
Right.
because the fact is that he was a world champion, meant something. You're the best, and it's just this. It's everything I did before, winning convincingly, and I even had a slightly higher rating at the time when I just faced
Yeah, I
Karpov.
remember reading that.
Yeah, yeah, that's not enough, and I failed miserably just in the opening of the match. And we played by very strict old-fashioned rules. So the winner had to win 6 games,
Okay.
and draws, they were not counted. So simply win 6 games.
Wow.
And it was, it's many of us thought, oh, it could be a very long match because I was losing probably 1 or 2 games a year, same Karpov. So it started, with a terrible backlash to me. I lost 4 games in the first 9. 4 games. After game 9, it was 4-0 in Karpov's favor. and it's something went totally wrong. So I just the one opening went wrong, and then in game 3, in game 6, I had just position that's typical Kasparov position is just attack. I could just I had few options to do this and that, and I just totally just screwed it completely, and then I even lost the game during the adjournment. So it's for some of our audiences, we have to explain what is adjournment because
Okay.
the games were adjourned. Now, by the way, it's much easier because of the Queen's Gambit. People watch the Queen's Gambit, they know that the games
Right.
could be adjourned. So that's why, yes, thanks to the show where I also served as a consultant. So many of the chess things now could be easily explained to the general public. So there was an adjournment. I lost game 6. I lost game 7. Also just making terrible blunder in the time trouble before time control. Lost game 9. Also adjournment and missed a draw.
Can
So
I say, and like, what are you thinking at this point? What do you think is happening?
uh, no, it's like in boxing. You're just being hit once, twice.
Okay.
So that's just this. Now, what do you need? You need time.
Yeah.
And that's about strategic decision. One of the best, if not the best, I ever made. And again, thanks to my mother, spoke also to Botvinnik. And 4-0, you lost. I mean, there's no way you can come back. It's Karpov, is dominant, and it's the best you can hope for is that you will not lose 6-0, and that's not to enter history from the wrong side, from the wrong door. Go against your own instincts. Don't play sharp, aggressive chess. Make draws. Protract the agony. Play as long as you can. You don't win now, you learn. Because okay, fine. You lose the match 3 years later, you come back, you use this experience. So from game nine, after losing game 9, so I managed to make draws from game 10 to game 26.
Oh my
17
gosh.
draws. So, and that's people say, oh, what Gary's doing, this is not good. He's not playing real chess. Who cares? It's about survival. Survival game is ugly. Survival game is not something that is very attractive. It's you're not getting any glory for that, but you're there.
Mm-hmm.
And somehow I think it had psychological effect on Karpov. He thought, oh, it's this I would attack. No, I just didn't care. Just defend, draw, let's go. And the match continued. But game 27 I equalized easily after the opening, easy draw, and then I just played so poorly, and he outplayed me completely. He won 5-0. Bingo, that's over. And now I remember this another ex-world champion, Mikhail Tal. So we had great relations. So he saw me after the game 27, the adjournment, and he said, "Young man, it's over. All you can do is slam the door. But make a big noise at the end." And I just I felt that I could probably be a little bit more aggressive, and I learned a lot. And we made 3 more draws, and game 31, Karpov announced that he would finish the match. The TV cameras, I remember TV cameras, there's all the people there. This is of Soviet officials, and he missed it. He was close, but he missed it. So there was a draw. And I think it was quite a shocking experience for him. And next day I won, so it became 5-1. Yeah, and then we played another 16 games. The match continued. Actually, he somehow he couldn't even get close to me. So he had only one chance in the next 16 games. I had many, and eventually I won game 47 and 48. And then the Soviet authorities, they were horrified by the fact that I was still there. I was dead after game 9. Game 48, I'm still there, looking fresh, and Karpov was terrified. So they called for FIDE president of International Chess Federation, and the match was stopped due to the exhaustion of both players. And we had to resume our match next fall. So I haven't won the match, but I think that's my greatest victory ever.
Yeah,
Because
I
I
love that the
survived.
process and the outcome's different. Yeah.
I survived a match that that was lost after game 9, and I was down 5-0. Now, what are the I don't know, just never tried to calculate what are the odds of surviving against sitting world champion, a dominant force in chess, being down 5-0. He needed only one game to win, and he failed. So what's happened, in 1985, in 1986, in 1987, in 1990, we played world championship matches, and all the matches were very close, very close. Was one very important, distinction. I won every decisive game. In 1985, before the last game, because we already played a limited number of games, I was leading 12-11. And as a world champion, he could retain the title if he would have won. He lost. In 1987, the roles reversed. Before the last game, he was leading 12-11, and I had to win to retain my title. I won the game. So this is every time we reach the climax, I won the decisive game. So that's a good story. That's
So,
that's
oh,
that's
great
the that's my
stories. Yeah.
that's no that's the that's it that's it's a good side of this decision making. Yeah. And now my negative experience. Again, World Championship match. 15 years later, year 2000, and I faced a young Russian star, Vladimir Kramnik, someone who I helped earlier. So he was a student, one of the students of Garry Kasparov school that we started after I won my title in 1985. So and we had 2.5 years with talented Soviet players, and Kramnik was one of them. And also, as Botvinnik many years before, I recognized Kramnik's phenomenal talent. And I opened a door for big chess for him by inviting him for Russian Olympic team in 1992. It was the first chess Olympiad after collapse of the Soviet Union. So that's why, the top Soviet players, they were spread between different former republics.
Right.
And it's arguably it was least impressive Russian team ever. And we needed, some fresh blood. And against the advice of some experienced coaches, I said, Kramnik, who was just turning 17 during the Olympiad, he had to be in the team. And he did great. So he had 8.5 out of 9 as a second reserve, and that was the beginning of his extraordinary rise. And in 2000, we played a World Championship match, and I made few mistakes. One of them was that I underestimated the fact that in 1995, Kramnik worked with me when I faced Vish Anand in a World Championship match that was played in New York. Actually, always remind people that it was played in the World Trade Center, and the first game was on September 11th.
Wow.
1995. That's on the very top of the World Trade Center. And Kramnik was one of my seconds in the match, so he helped me. And he could see actually the way we work from within. So like he had access to this inner kitchen
Right.
of chess preparation. He also learned from me and Botvinnik earlier. And he also had a very good score against me. So it was even score. So we were just very close. And we played even one blitz match in 1998, 24 games, 2 days, and it ended 12-12. So Kramnik had no fear, and like many other players, he had no fear. He was well prepared. He knew, me from inside. So and he did, he did something very, something fascinating during his preparation. He picked up a very old line that had been literally abandoned by top players for nearly 100 years, a so-called Berlin Wall. And it was a great choice because it actually proved to be a very, very good line for black. Now it's one of the most popular lines. So it's ironically there. This the one popular line is just Berlin Wall that brought by Kramnik, and one that says I played, a sharper line. But Kramnik actually opened so a new chapter by just but it's not just a new line that was totally undeveloped, but it immediately led to the end game. So the queens were gone. So the
Okay.
change of queens, early change of queens, but many other pieces. It's not just end game with few pieces. It's just you can call it middle game without queens. And he was right anticipating that I was much better with queens. I was a sharper player. So that's removing queens, making position more solid and less dramatic would be his advantage.
Right.
Now that's a great choice. But my mistake was that instead of recognizing that it's a wrong turf for me to fight, I wanted to prove something.
Uh-huh.
If I had time, with unlimited match, maybe I could have recovered. But the match was 16 games, and I was banging in this wall just with no avail. And Kramnik also had very good preparation with white pieces, so he won game 2, and then game 10, and the match ended with two losses and 13 draws. Just I just couldn't hit a single game,
Yeah.
and it's
Wow.
just due to my stubbornness and unwillingness to just recognize that I still had many other tools in my possession.
Right.
I still could shift, from one type of positions to another. And I was really well prepared. It's not that I was unprepared and I just blew up my preparation by just swimming or just in the sea and watching movies. No, I worked really hard.
Mm-hmm.
But it's I was so well prepared, and in the next couple of years I could show the fruits of my preparation in other games against other players. But it's you have great preparation. You worked out everything that is happening on the 90% of the territory, but your opponent is dragged you on the remaining 10%.
Yeah.
And instead of saying, okay, fine, yeah, it's not, I understand, you're better prepared for this challenge. Let me find something else. Not that I prepared, but just something else. I just tried to find something during the match, and it didn't work. Not that I was totally helpless in these positions. In 8 months after the match, we played in one of the tournaments. It was the double round tournament, 6 players, top players in Astana in Kazakhstan. And before the last round, Kramnik was half a point ahead. And I played white against him, and I had to win. And he chose Berlin Wall, but the wall collapsed that time. So, but again, it's just I wish I had this kind of success in London in the year 2000, not in Astana in 2001. So that's an important lesson. You know what you're good at, but you should also recognize that sometimes you just have to you be flexible. The same way I was with Karpov. Maybe
Mm-hmm.
it's my mother eventually said, look, Gary, maybe that's not a punishment, but it's a price you paid because you saved the match, and it was a miracle against Karpov. Maybe it was time to pay the debt. Not that it made me feel happy, but that's the that's,
Right.
that's what she said.
I'm thinking about the transferability of that insight to the decisions that we all make every day, and to make sure that we're in a context where we're likely to make decisions well, versus recognizing when we're in a situation that either because we're not prepared for it, or it's not familiar, or we don't have a reason to trust our intuition or wisdom of practice, that we should be really careful about making decisions. I don't know if you gave that any thought outside of chess.
Yeah, it's this is the this one thing that I think people often they miss. They just don't get it. Not making decision is also a decision. So that's something that just you should learn before even debating decision making, because trying to avoid making decision is a decision. So it's our life is is a complex system of millions of decisions we make. And the second rule, or just second element of this complex system, is that decisions, you should not separate them by the magnitude, because we still go through the similar process of making decisions. And people say, oh, this decision about war and peace, this decision about raising taxes, this is decision about God forbid life and death on a military battlefield. But the decision about preparing birthday cake and organizing a party, it's also a decision. And they just they go through similar processes. So it's
Mm-hmm.
the magnitude of a decision often shadows the structure of decisions we make. I try to decimate the process in three categories. Like you look at the material, you look at the timing, and look at the quality.
Mm-hmm.
And it's no matter what we do, we always operate with these three elements, because we look at for the materials, whether it's chess, politics, business, buying a new house. And then you look at the timing. So it's the timing could be more complicated, because it involves how many months I could get, just how many years, it's for mortgage, and also how far this new house from my workplace or my school, my children's school.
Mm-hmm.
And then the quality includes everything: the neighborhood, whether you have a park next to, or the waterfront, or you have the good school or not a good school. So and then you start measuring these things against each other. And we think, oh, it's very trivial. It doesn't matter. It's decision being trivial doesn't make it easier. Sometimes you're more complicated, because we just we're not so much engaged in analyzing these different factors.
Yeah. One of the things that struck me about when I was reading about your experience with chess was that part of what you're always doing is exploring alternatives for a decision. And when you move out into the world beyond the chessboard, it's not as obvious when to stop looking for new alternatives. There are more moves available than even on a chessboard, because you can change the rules and you can introduce new pieces, to try to extend that metaphor a little bit. Have you thought about, so generating alternatives is obviously a thing that you've done so many times and been so trained to always do for your decision. What are the other things besides the framework of material, time, and quality that you would say you've learned from chess that you apply now to all of your decisions?
What I also learned is that the quality of your decision depends very much on the landscape, environment, the circumstances that are surrounding this process, because we are all different. And I always tell people that following an advice you heard from a guru, talking to a big crowd from the stage, it's no good, because general advice doesn't work. It's like, offering the same medicine for everybody who, God forbid, has COVID or just any other virus. You have to give your tests. You have to know exactly, what type of blood you have. So this is what are your, potential preconditions. So we're all different. Decision making is also unique. It's just as unique as your fingerprints or DNA. And understanding who you are, it's very, very important. Knowing exactly so what kind of situations you can handle better and
Mm-hmm.
worse is also very important. So in most of the battles we're engaged in, whether it's in sport and politics or business, we are facing an opposition, and it's very important that we will create conditions for our decision making that are just preferable to us. Because some of us, are just more dynamic and more aggressive, like myself. Some of us are more conservative and more reserved. It's neither good nor bad. Being, who you are is not an advantage or disadvantage. I will be arguing for attacker's advantage because I'm more aggressive. But I know exactly that the player in tennis, for instance, who is very powerful, at the back line, he could be also number one. Yeah, so it's not about being fire or ice. Karpov was ice, I was fire. Kramnik is probably more an ice than fire. So that's just, yeah, it's just you can win, you can lose. It's about creating conditions where you can use your unique qualities, your unique features to your advantage, and to downplay the importance of your opponent's strengths.
Right.
So that's about creating situation where you feel comfortable for your decision making, because many of the decisions will be done intuitively, like gut feelings. Many decisions made under time pressure when you just don't have to calculate, and your instincts will prevail. So that's why, being surrounded by the circumstances that make you the most comfortable landscape for your decision making. That's the one of the greatest secrets of success on the very top.
I really appreciate that point of view. It's one we haven't heard before, and it certainly has a lot of merit. One of the things we're trying to do is collect the insights of theoreticians and practitioners, and you kind of straddle both with regard to decision making. Think about, okay, what's the best about what we've learned that we could pass on to the next generation to improve their decision making? When you think about that, you think about the kinds of decisions they're going to face, whether it's dealing with intelligent machines, or it's dealing with issues of democracy and liberalism or human rights, or it's just personal decisions like making a birthday cake. What's the thing that really stands out to you as, I wish every young person learned this about decision making before they became an adult?
Oh, it's we're about to open a Pandora box, debating the educational system, modern educational system, which I think it's not modern but antiquated. I think that's the one of the greatest problems that we have to deal with, is the fact that our educational system is not built to help our kids, our children, to face challenges that exist today and will exist tomorrow. So it's an old-fashioned system. It's a system that is based on a one-way street. So when the teacher, days when the teacher was the center of the universe, the center of authority and knowledge in the classroom. I always ask people to make this some kind of mental experiment, to visualize someone traveling in a time machine from, say, 1875
Mm-hmm.
to 2021. What this person, he or she, could recognize? Nothing, nothing, absolutely nothing. It's everything will be new, will be sensational, will be mind-boggling, except one: classroom. Classroom is still the same. It still operates, in very much the same environment. But the difference is that the kids today, they don't understand how this could be a one-way street, because everything is interactive.
Right.
So it's by swiping their finger, they can collect more data in a few minutes than their teacher, could gather over years. Now, that's where we're failing, because we are still teaching them what, and instead we have to help them to understand how. Collecting data is no longer a challenge. They don't need these books. How many of kids read real books, or they just look at the screen? So they they have overwhelmed with data. There's the flood of data. But what does matter? This is that's what we should teach them or actually share our experience. It's is somehow it reflects our relations with intelligent machines, since you mentioned them. Machines know the patterns. Machines has they have brute force. They calculate, just almost in the speed of light, but they still don't know what matters. This is human. So this is they machines can ask questions, but they don't know what questions are relevant. I think we have to teach our kids to be more human, just to understand that this is it's you should not be not you should no longer be proud working like a machine. That was a kind of a compliment
Right,
20,
right.
30 years ago. Oh,
Yeah.
he or she, they work like a machine. That's no, no, no. Now the compliment is the opposite. This is just, yeah. And I think this is something that we have to share with our children. This is the way to prepare them for the challenges of the future, because we don't even know what kind of jobs they will cover 10 years from now. There will be new jobs. I can tell you, most of the jobs that today are prestigious jobs, they may be gone.
Hmm.
Good. That's called progress. That's called it's a new challenge. It's all speeding up. But we just have to tell them that there's an experience that we gathered throughout our life. But they will be operating in a new environment, because this is quite a revolutionary period. Yeah, in human history there are moments that were relatively slow, maybe slow by our standards, but we definitely living in an era where things happen fast. And I think we just have to reconsider the way that the information that I've gathered before, the educational process will be reinvented to be adjusted for the challenges of the 21st
I
century.
appreciate that. I want to focus on something I've heard from you in a few of your stories and comments that I think is an important thread to pull out, which is you've got this deep. First of all, you've had an exceptional life. So a lot of kids might just look at that and say, "Okay, I want to have a life like Gary's had. I want to do something extraordinary and do many extraordinary things." But you've also paid a lot of attention to what it is to be a human being and what we owe to ourselves with regard to how we make decisions so as to live a good life, and then what we owe to one another in society as fellow human beings. And it seems to me that that's informed your work with the Renew Democracy Now initiative. It informed your work in the activism you did back in Russia. Could you just say, if you'd like, a few things about what's driving that? What does that mean to you? What is it about being human, or having a human life that so inspires you to keep on looking for opportunities and making decisions?
Look, I grew up in the Soviet Union. That's not an experience I want many of kids to share. Though we still know that more than 60% of people on our planet, they live under authoritarian or totalitarian rule. Many of these people live in countries run by terrorists and thugs. But my experience definitely had a mark on me. I recognized at an early age the shortcomings of the Soviet system, but we also recognized that if you wanted to leave and just to go on your own business, so you had to be quiet. But I couldn't be very quiet, so and I immediately call it abuse my new status as a world champion to raise my voice. And I remember that's one of the lessons, again, coming from my mother, who put on top of my bed when I was a teenager. It's actually a teen, 12, 13, I don't recall what age. A motto: if not you, who else? That's one of the models of the Soviet dissidents. So you have to do it. It's just you should not wait for others to join. Someone has to be first. And also, I remember other lessons from Soviet dissidents. It's do what you must and so be it. Yeah, I have to confess that being world champion in the Soviet Union, carrying this unique title, offered me some protection. Ironically, more in the Soviet Union than in Putin's Russia. So, but it's recognizing that we live in a world that is it's getting more and more complex. It's some sort of a paradox, because we think, oh, Now with all these new devices that make us aware about what's happening in the most remote parts of our planet, so we'll be connected, and it will create sort of better relations between people. But it's not about technology, it's about us. I feel annoyed, disappointed, even angry when I just see that any form of ideology is trying to intervene in the relations between people,
Hmm.
because I respect people. It's no matter what is their race, gender, religion, nationality. It's just, you have your own, views, and you're entitled for your own views, your own history, your own beliefs, as long as they do not interfere with mine. Interfere, you don't have to agree with me. You just don't have to interfere. So that's it. So I think this is very important for our kids to understand. So this is, we're different. It's the difference is not just race. It's not about being white, black, or whatever, but it's just even two people, whether they belong to the same race, they're different. As I already said, decision making is unique. We are different. Each person, each individual is absolutely unique in his or her own capacity. And I also believe that the talent is distributed everywhere. It's not about one continent, one nation, one race being more talented or less. It's about opportunity. So as long as we recognize that, and as long as we offer opportunity for people around the globe, so we will all benefit. And I know that sometimes it's tough, because you do this, and you face many challenges, and you pay a very steep price. But while some individuals can lose, humanity wins. So that's why if I have to address young people, you have to recover the spirit of exploration and understand the risk. I wish you to walk on the red dust of Mars. And I want you to continue space exploration. I want you to go deep down the oceans, and just to find out all the secrets of Mother Earth that we have not yet discovered. But just remember, it's a risk. But it's this exploration is something that made us so unique. And I remember I addressed graduates. I did a commencement speech at St. Louis University in 2015 in St. Louis, Missouri. And I told them that today flying to Mars is probably safer than for Columbus to cross the Atlantic, because you know the distance and you have the map. So
Right.
I think as a sisters, we brought you mean this new generations, unique technology, great opportunities, but you just have to turn them into something phenomenal, because we we've probably failed by trying to avoid risk. You can have individuals or a group of people losing, but humanity always win. When people are talking about AI threatening our jobs, yes, I don't want to sound callous. I do recognize many jobs can be lost on the chopping block of automation. But when they say, "Oh, AI is threatening, so many good jobs, the white collar, highly paid jobs of, say, radiology," yes. But while you're talking about hundreds of maybe thousands of jobs in question, it also brings down the price of this process. It also gives opportunity for people elsewhere in Africa, in Asia, to have access to that. So yes, you lose here, but humanity wins. And that's what I believe. It's just it should be our message, and to young generation, and our contribution to their education. So you have all the resources, but now you just have to recover what we lost: the spirit of exploration, and recognition that individual risk is also worth taking, because even if you fail, you definitely contribute to the whole of humanity.
Well, thank you for that, Garry, and for this entire conversation. I've learned a lot and enjoyed it thoroughly. We're going to put links to the Democracy Now initiative on our site, as well as links to your
Thank you.
books. Is there any other one book that you'd recommend to all of us to read about decision making?
It's it will be wrong for me to avoid the book that starts with the word how. My book starts with how life imitates chess, but Annie Duke's book starts how to decide. So it's not a flattering. It's just it's a recognition that these two books, actually, they should be read. It's like a combination, because one comes from chess, one comes from poker, and
Right.
it creates a nice synergy, because one comes from the game that is just based on 100% available information, and one comes from the area of intuitive decision, sometimes bluff, and pattern and probabilities. So it's this is if you just read these two books and just and try to merge them into one vision. I think that will be great contribution to your decision making formula. And if you look for How Life Imitates Chess, I recommend you try to have your hands on the UK edition, which is the original one. US is also fine, but UK is more of my voice because it's the original one. It has more chess and more biography, while US decision is more, just a straightforward, business instead of we language, it's a you language. So and it's more about tips. But still, it's okay. But try to get the UK edition.
All right, we'll make sure we link that one. Thanks.
Thank you.
Well, thank you very much. I really appreciate this.
Yes,
and yeah.
Thank you.
At the Alliance for Decision Education, our mission is to improve lives by empowering students with essential decision skills. We are building a national movement to ensure decision education is part of every student's learning experience. Through this podcast, we are raising awareness about the movement, but we need your help. Please share, tweet, and sign the petition on our website, alliancefordecisioneducation.org. If there is someone you think would be great for us to interview for a future episode, or if you have a question about decision making that you'd like us to explore on the podcast, email us at connect@alliancefordecisioneducation.org. Also, ratings on Apple Podcasts are greatly appreciated, and don't forget to subscribe to this podcast in your favorite app so that you don't miss an episode. Thank you, and I hope you join us again soon.